Today we're going to be speaking with Mr. Bobby Singh. Mr. Singh received his associate's degree in accounting from Valencia College and his bachelor's degree in marketing from the University of Central Florida. He's been the Chief Operations Officer at Leather Impressions, a leather goods company, since 1994. Mr. Singh, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Are you ready to get started?
Yes.
Okay, so first, can you please tell us about your journey in college? What made you choose UCF, and how were your experiences there?
We just moved from India in 1985, and my parents had started businesses. A couple of them failed, and then our choices were limited back then. So I started off in Valencia just from a financial perspective, because three of us, my siblings, my brother, my sister, and me, were all going to college at the same time. And since we just moved from India, we were paying international student fees. So that was inflated by 3 times. So it was a challenge financially, and we just moved here. It was just very, very difficult times back then. And UCF was just the most financially viable option for us.
Did you do any activities there or at Valencia?
In Valencia, I played on the college tennis team, and I was in the debate team there. And UCF was a bigger entity, and you know, with the class loads that we had, because we were trying to get through quicker, we didn't have as much options. But I did join the table tennis team there for a minute, and extracurriculars was not much, because just to put ourselves through college, me, my brother, and my sister had to work. We had 2 boutiques. So one in Winter Park and one in Kissimmee. And so the 3 of us would run that, and that's pretty much how we put ourselves through college.
So while working in college, did it take you longer to get your degree?
Yeah, it did, because you know we made it up on the summer.
Okay.
So like, you know, if you sorry.
That's okay. We'll cut it out.
So yeah, it did take longer because we weren't able to focus entirely on school, because we had the pressures of the businesses and the pressure of college at the same time, and trying to balance those two was a challenge. It, like, compared to our peers, we did end up making a lot of sacrifices.
Yeah.
Since we couldn't like go to the parties, because you know, or go hang out, because you know we were in a mall, so we'd work till 9:30 to 10 every night, and we'd open at 9 in the morning. So our hours were very limited.
Yeah.
And we had to actually set our schedules, the 3 of us, stagger it, so one of us could be at one of the stores, so we all shared the responsibilities.
Wow. Did you continue those businesses after you graduated?
They just bifurcated. My brother took over the boutique ends, and I started traveling, so he took over the boutique ends, and when my parents needed help, that's how I ended up joining Leather Impressions. I started traveling, so I came back and started helping my parents.
Where did you travel?
Traveled to India, because although we lived in India, I never traveled to India. Like, you know, you'd stay in your city and you'd go to a wedding or something, but we never really traveled. So it gave me the opportunity, because I was alone and not much else to do there. So I did travel to all the cities that, you know, that normally you wouldn't get to travel. Met some of the most interesting people. Like I started off traveling in first class and being all bougie, and then later on I just started traveling in the second class, and I promise you I met great people that, although they were of meager, they had meager belongings, they would share everything they had with you. I remember a mother of 5 was traveling alone with her 5 kids, and it was a day-and-a-half trip, and she insisted on feeding me. So, and I was like, you got 5 kids, I'll just jump out of the train and get something. And she's like, no, you got to. And it was almost to the point where she felt offended if I said no. Yeah, just so you met some amazing people.
Yeah.
If I was to give any wisdom to younger people, it would always be to travel. As much as school will teach you, traveling will teach you a lot more.
Yeah. So when you joined the company, so you started working with your father?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you consider any other businesses, or?
Actually, I wanted to go to law school.
Oh.
Yeah, but like it just the needs at the time were that I needed to help my parents out to build this business, and so that's where there was a struggle for the first year or 2 years, but then as soon as I started putting a little bit more of myself into it, it started becoming a little bit more part of me, and now it's, I can't think of my day or my life without this company because it's put so much into it.
How has the industry changed in the past 25 years?
Well, the internet. When we started, we didn't have the web.
Yeah.
That was one. Computers were in their infancy. So, like, I remember, it's made such great strides. Like, inventory management was always an issue. Communication was always an issue because telephones were so expensive.
Yeah.
Faxes, sending and getting them were so expensive. So like we used to have to write down when we're communicating with factories like what we needed and how soon we needed it, and just make it really quick because and there was so many errors.
Yeah.
Because you can think you're communicating something and they don't understand it. There's always a language barrier. So yeah, that was a challenge. I think communication has become so much more efficient. Inventory management, supply chains have all become so streamlined now that makes life a whole lot easier. I mean, you guys have Zoom. We had AT&T.
How many employees do you have now?
We have 10.
Okay.
Started off with my mom, my dad, and me. And then later on, my brother-in-law joined us, and then we had one other employee. And back then, to do the marketing, we used to do it through catalogs and through trade shows. So our company's built on trade shows are called relationship marketing. So you meet the people, you create a relationship, and then you start developing those relationships, and that's how you grow your business. It's still done that way. It's just the communication end of it has become a lot more seamless. Like if you have a question from your buyer or you have a question for your vendor, you just dash off an email and you get a response within like 30 minutes. So,
How often? Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
How often do you do trade shows?
We used to do 22 at one point, 22 to 26. So basically, when we were building the business, I was gone 26 to 30 weeks out of the year.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was fun before I had children. It got really complicated and difficult after the children. So, because you always get conflicted. Spend time there, grow the business is always a conflict.
Yeah.
So now we do 5.
5 a year?
5 a year. Because, that's what's the innovation and the changes that you were asking about. Like, websites. And now from websites they're going to apps. So we're in the process of now developing an app.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so then our customers can just go on the app. Makes it a lot easier for us to feed them new products instead of having to send an email, which you send a mass email, which you'll get a 4% return is what your goal is.
Okay.
But with an app, you have like a 12 to 14% return.
Okay.
It's a little bit more of an investment, but long term, because you have a very targeted audience. If they're interested in your products, they download your app.
Yeah.
If they're not. Just about like, I think business is just going to get finessed, but the catch is where you get overwhelmed with data that I call it data paralysis. Okay. When you have too much data, it makes it very difficult to make decisions. Yeah. So you have to balance the two out. So does that answer that question, or do you want to elaborate on it?
Well, when is the app going to be launched, do you think?
We're 3 months behind. We were hoping to have it launched in April, but again, it's new for us, so we were expecting some hurdles, but yeah, small things that you wouldn't figure would become an issue, right? Like we have hundreds of times, like each product that we sell, we have 8 to 12 shots of, and if we have them in 3 or 4 colors, then then that's 48 shots. Yeah. Now they're all not in the spec
Oh.
So we have to redo all of those images in your so they weren't loading up correctly, the sizing wasn't right. Small thing, these are just hurdles that you have to you can, we should have looked at it and we should have envisioned it, but we didn't see it happening. But yeah, so that's where we got stuck, and it takes a long time to get all of that stuff done.
So you're building the app now with leather impressions, but do you have any other projects going on besides leather impressions?
So Leather Impressions is a B2B company where we sell to retail stores or online retailers.
Okay.
So our other project that we're trying to do is we're trying to go direct to the consumer using third-party platforms, and once we get that established and our name out, we're going to we're launching our own website. It's going to be direct to the consumer, B2C site. So that's one of my other projects that we're working on. We're also working on creating which I feel is an under-marketed product line, which is, you have promotional companies that cater to larger companies.
Yeah.
We want to cater to smaller companies where we can digitize their logos and put it on products, but we don't have to do huge runs. Like, we're actually going to target doctors' offices.
Oh wow, okay.
Because they don't get out, but they have to do giveaways, and we're gonna bank on the people that are sick of giving away cheese baskets and wine baskets, and we're gonna try and get them to give more tangible products away. So that'll be a project for 2023.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. But outside of Leather Impressions, the company, do you have any other projects?
We do a lot of real estate. Okay. So we do a lot of commercial real estate is where our focus is. That's one of the, if you have to build generational wealth, that's probably the best way to create it, unless you have a company that you can scale.
Okay.
Our industry is got a minimal, it's got a shelf life now. Because as online markets are taking over, the brick and mortar stores are getting squeezed. There will come a time where there'll be parity, but it's not there yet. Like retail brick and mortar stores will become more and more service oriented, and it's gotten to the point where online markets are now that we're learning that we're trying to be business to consumer channels. Now we understand that that's crowded.
Yeah.
Sticking out online is crowded. It is cheaper, hands down, to run a brick and mortar store than it is to run an online store.
Yeah.
And it's got, so those are challenges that you face, that every business will face. Going back to your earlier question is, what have I seen changes in 25 years other than the internet? One thing that I feel that we have to do for every company that wants to stay viable, because we've been around since my dad started the company in 1987.
Okay.
So we've been around for over 30 years.
Yeah.
Every 4 to 5 years, every company, whether they choose to or not, are going to have to reinvent themselves.
Right.
And it just happens like clockwork. Whether it be product lines, or you pick up a new customer, or something to that effect, but it will always happen. So if you plan for it, then it makes life a lot easier.
Right.
And I would always say, if you're allocating resources as a business, resource allocation is probably the biggest thing I have to do as a CEO. I always leave myself 15 to 20% of nimble room.
Okay.
So if the market changes, we're not capped out. We can make that change.
Yeah.
So that's something that younger entrepreneurs need to focus on a lot more. You can go all in. We've had so many products over the years that we sell a lot of, but then it'll just come to a point where it just happens that it's not desired anymore, and it'll just end like that. So then you have to worry about stuck with inventory. But if you don't have the nimbleness to be able to pivot to see what the market's required, you have all your money stuck in a product that's not selling. So I always suggest that, always keep a cushion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So looking at all these changes in the industry, do you think you could have done anything differently on your journey?
Yes.
Like what?
There's always errors. If you don't make errors, you're not trying.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm a firm believer in it. I think my failures have taught me more than my successes. And what would I have differently? Probably learned the financial end of the business better.
Okay.
Like, which would be asset allocation, funding, and keeping more on trend. I think one of my biggest failures was we were doing really well. There's a certain level of arrogance that creeped in,
Mm-hmm.
and I started thinking we could dictate to the customer.
Oh, okay.
And I got myself in trouble because I'm like, I didn't keep up with the market trends. So we lost a huge portion of our market share because we weren't nimble enough. We're like, oh no, we're selling so many of these.
Oh.
It's going to continue.
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
Yeah.
It will go away at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't nimble enough, and I had so much invested in that product line that was doing really well. You know, it's a hard thing to do, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
It'll just make you more successful down the road.
Mm-hmm.
That was my biggest. And my other failure was that I always thought that my product was my biggest asset.
Okay.
It's not your product, it's always your customers.
Mm.
Products will change, but as long as you satisfy customers, and you'll always have them.
Mm-hmm.
If you're honest with them. Like, you know, we always want to please and say, like, go out of our comfort level and say, hey, we can do a project, or no. I've learned over the years that say no if you can't do it,
Yeah.
because you'll still leave that door open. And so saying you can do something and then not being able to accomplish it,
Mm-hmm.
and then that creates a bigger problem for the vendor, for your customer.
Mm-hmm.
And then you lose the customer because you pretty much let them down. So that's something that you have to focus on.
Right.
Not your service, not your goods. It's your customer. That's your biggest asset.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that a little too late.
Oh.
Like, we could have been a much bigger company if I had realized that earlier.
Yeah. Okay. You were talking about learning like specific financial skills. Would that have been done like in college through a course, or?
In my case, I feel it would have been if I got some corporate experience.
Okay.
Like, you know, we built this business organically, like through us and the changes that we
Mm-hmm.
needed. The corporate structure is very important to scale a business.
Okay.
So I didn't have that, but I should have hired the people
Mm.
that had that experience.
Got it.
And so you're not going to be able to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
So the motto is always do what you do best and hire the rest.
Mm.
That's
Yeah.
always a motto. Like, we have Jay interning right now,
Mm-hmm.
and the basic thing I'm teaching him is like, okay, you need to know the basics,
Yeah.
because you're not going to do the logos and do the graphic artists or whatever products that you're creating,
Mm-hmm.
but you need to know enough about it so no one can take you for a ride.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have, and you don't have to learn so much, you know, little pieces that, you know, no one can take advantage of you. And then you also know where to go reach out to get the help that you need.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example of Ford. They tried to take his company away because he had a 7th grade education.
Oh.
Henry
Really?
Ford, yes. So they're like, how can you know you have 7th grade education? And his response was really, really jarring. He just said, I may not have the information, but I know who to call.
Mm. Okay.
So you don't have to have all the information. You just need to know who to call
Yeah.
and get the help that you need. And yeah, because, you know, there's so many different facets to any company to running it. You can't possibly do it all on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Your biggest assets are always your employees and your customers. Those are the two that you need to focus on the most.
Mm-hmm.
Happy employees will make you more money.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Besides that, do you have any other advice for high school students regarding education, business?
network.
Yeah.
I think one of the skills, this may be harsh to say, but one of the skills I think that's lost is the art of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Because I struggle with my kids. Like, we'll take them to dinner and they'll be on their phones. I think physical cues, like, that we have honed over years, like doing trade shows and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like, you'll be able to, you can see physical cues not having one-on-one interaction. Like I'm talking to you right now.
Yeah.
we could have done this on Zoom. But you wouldn't be able to tell my physical, when I was nervous, which questions made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Those cues you can't find out. And I think in order to succeed in business, you have to be able to read the room. And if you don't have any experience doing it, it'll be tougher.
Yeah.
Because you might envision a person's leaning one way, but they're actually leaning the other way.
Yeah.
So body language gives you cues. Tone gives you cues, right? Those are things that you can get masked on. It's one of the downfalls of, not the downfalls, but one of the challenges of communicating without having one-on-one time with people. Like, you won't be able to understand the physical cues.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. And this is probably underrated, and probably most people think when you shake someone's hand, always look at them in the eye. And that's something that I've seen the younger kids like struggle with, because they'll shake hands firmly and look the person in the eye. It just lets the other person know that you're confident. That those things do help. They're just tiny little tweaks.
Yeah.
But those things do help.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And yeah, the more you can have one-on-one interactions, that would be one. The other one be have conversations that make you uncomfortable. It'll make you see another point of view. Like, I think we're all becoming slaves to algorithms. So like, if I go search, I'll get information that caters to my bias. So I force myself to have conversations with people that would make me uncomfortable, just to understand their point of view. Because there's no right or wrong, there's just different points of view.
Right.
So like, it'll give you an idea of the different points of views.
Yeah, different perspectives.
Yeah, different perspective. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's it. It was
All
a
right.
great conversation. Do you have
Yeah,
anything
thank you.
else to share?
You can always reach out if you need anything.
Okay.
And if any of your friends in high school want to reach out, they're more than welcome.
Yeah. Well, this conversation is definitely very beneficial to students my age, maybe
Thank you.
going into business or education.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you for sharing your experiences with
All right.
us.